In southern Africa, a bold decision has just been made. After rejecting proposals from 8 European and American railway companies, Zimbabwe has turned east, signing a $533 million railway reconstruction deal with China. It's a move that shocked Western observers, delighted much of Africa, and signaled something far bigger than just a railway project. It's a story of trust, strategy, and the quiet reshaping of Africa's future. To understand why this single deal has drawn global attention, we need to look back at how Zimbabwe, once one of Africa's most prosperous nations, fell into crisis, and why rebuilding its railways has now become a symbol of hope. There was a time when Zimbabwe's name stood for progress. In the 1980s and 1990s, it was known as the breadbasket of Africa, supported by fertile farmlands, rich mineral reserves, and one of the most advanced railway systems in the region. Trains thundered across the country, carrying copper, coal, and agricultural goods to Mozambique's Beira port and South Africa's Durban port. At its peak, the national railways of Zimbabwe moved over 12 million tons of freight a year, the arteries of a growing regional economy. But decades of economic hardship, political isolation, and lack of maintenance changed everything. Today, only a fraction of that system still works. Most tracks are rusted, stations stand abandoned. The annual freight volume has collapsed to less than 3 million tons, just 25% of its former glory. With locomotives long out of service and equipment decades old, the cost of moving goods inside the country has skyrocketed. Logistics now consume 18% of Zimbabwe's GDP, almost twice the global average, strangling industries that once made the nation rich. In September 2025, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa flew to Beijing. There, in the Great Hall of the People, he signed a landmark deal with China Railway Company, a $533 million agreement to completely rebuild Zimbabwe's decaying rail network. This wasn't a sudden decision. Talks between Harare and Beijing began as early as 2024, when both sides signed a memorandum of understanding, followed by months of feasibility studies and technical assessments. The project will be led by a subsidiary of China Railway, a company already experienced in building major railways across Africa, from Nigeria's Lagos-Kano line to Kenya's Mombasa-Nairobi corridor. But what truly caught attention wasn't just the deal itself, it was who Zimbabwe turned away. 8 companies from Europe and the United States had submitted cooperation proposals, yet in the end, none were chosen. Zimbabwe opted for China, not because of ideology, but practicality. Under the agreement, China will rebuild and modernize Zimbabwe's entire railway backbone. That includes repairing aging bridges, strengthening main trunk lines, and replacing the outdated analog signal system with a new digital smart network, a system that will improve train scheduling, reduce delays, and boost safety. 17 brand-new locomotives and over 200 modern freight wagons will be delivered, 5 major stations will be fully modernized, and the logistics system connecting mines, factories, and border points will be digitized for real-time monitoring. One of the most critical parts of this project is the Beitbridge-Harare Main Line, a 566-kilometer corridor connecting Zimbabwe directly with South Africa, its largest trading partner. Currently, transport between the two countries is slow and congested. Trucks wait for days at border crossings, and poor railway conditions limit cargo flows. Once completed, the new railway will cut transport time by 30%, lower logistics costs, and give Zimbabwe a more competitive edge in exporting minerals and goods to regional and global markets. But as soon as the deal was announced, criticism erupted. Western media quickly accused China of expanding its so-called debt trap diplomacy, claiming Beijing was luring Africa into dependency through loans and infrastructure. Yet, the facts tell a more complex story. Zimbabwe's external debt already stands at over $13 billion, and the country has been in default for 2 decades. That makes it nearly impossible to access funding from institutions like the World Bank or the IMF. China, aware of this, structured the deal using loan for cooperation mechanisms, a flexible model that reduces repayment pressure while allowing infrastructure progress to continue. And for Zimbabwe, this was not just a transaction, it was critics often ignore that Western offers came with strict political and economic conditions, requirements involving governance, human rights, and financial restructuring. China's approach was different. No political strings, no imposed reforms, just a focus on building what Zimbabwe urgently needed. This is not the first time such a situation has played out. Years earlier, Ethiopia faced a similar choice when building the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway. European companies offered financing, but only with heavy conditions. China offered a simpler, faster deal. The result? That railway, completed in 2016, transformed Ethiopia's logistics, reducing land transport time from several days to just 12 hours, and turning Ethiopia into one of Africa's fastest-growing export hubs. Zimbabwe is hoping for a similar transformation. Beyond economics, there's a deeper geopolitical dimension. Zimbabwe is rich, not in cash, but in resources. It holds over 40 proven mineral deposits, including lithium, platinum, chrome, and gold. These minerals are crucial for global industries, especially green energy and electric vehicles, sectors where China already dominates global supply chains. But for years, Zimbabwe's outdated transport infrastructure made exporting these resources slow and costly. Mines would extract valuable ore, only for it to pile up unshipped in rural storage yards. With the new railway, the government hopes to change that. Transport time from Harare to Mozambique's Beira port will drop from 14 days to just 7, and shipping costs are expected to fall by 35%. Even exports to China will move faster, shortening delivery cycles by up to 2 weeks. For Zimbabwe's government, this isn't just about trains, it's about breaking a cycle of stagnation, unlocking trade, creating jobs, and building independence. So, why does China care so much about Zimbabwe? Well, it's because Zimbabwe sits right at the heart of southern Africa's logistical map. It borders 6 nations, including Zambia, Mozambique, and South Africa, making it a natural transit hub for the region's minerals and goods. For Beijing, investing in Zimbabwe's infrastructure isn't only about profit, it's actually part of a larger blueprint, the Belt and Road Initiative, a vision to connect markets across Africa through railways, ports, and digital networks. Each new railway line, expands China's influence in global trade routes and strengthens ties with developing nations that the West has often overlooked. Inside Zimbabwe, reactions have been largely optimistic. Ordinary citizens see the deal as a new beginning, a chance to reconnect towns, reopen industries, and revive the economy. Local entrepreneurs hope the improved railway will reduce transport costs, while miners see it as a path to finally deliver their products efficiently to global markets. For a nation that once suffered one of the world's worst hyperinflations, this project feels like more than just infrastructure. It feels like redemption. Zimbabwe's $533 million railway deal is more than an engineering project. It's a statement, a sign that developing nations are beginning to choose their partners on their own terms. For the West, it's a warning. The world's new infrastructure race is being rewritten, not in the boardrooms of Washington or Brussels, but in the railway yards of Harare, Addis Ababa, and Nairobi. For Zimbabwe, it's the start of a new chapter, one that may finally carry the nation back onto the global stage. Not through words or promises, but through the sound of trains, once again, running across its heartland. This is not just a railway story, it's a glimpse into a shifting world, where Africa is rebuilding, China is rising, and the lines of global power are being redrawn, one track at a time.